Hello, BookTube. All right, it's much later in the day, and we have more mail. So let's go through that. No boxes this time, but I want to get these mail hauls back on track. I want to feel good about them. So we'll try this, and I'll just hope that it doesn't go off the rails so that I can upload it. What is this first one? From Yale University Press, one of my favorite of all the academic presses. This is called Way of Life: Things, Thought, and Action in Chinese Medicine. I think we've seen this in the advanced copy. This is by Judith Farquhar, A Way of Life. And it comes out in March. Of course, a lot of these are going to be March. My March shelves. I thought I had them under control. My friend Sam came up and we went through them and tamed them just briefly. And now I've gotten. Since then, that was what? Friday. So in a week, I've gotten probably 40 more books, so more than that. So, and they're all March, or it seems that way. Traditional Chinese medicine is often viewed as mystical or superstitious, with outcomes requiring naive faith. The author, drawing on her hard-won knowledge of social, intellectual, and clinical worlds in today's China, here offers a concise and nuanced treatment that addresses enduring and troublesome ontological, epistemological, and ethical questions. Okay, all right. In this work, which is based on her 2017 Terry Lectures, Reality, Reason, and Action in and Beyond Chinese Medicine, she considers how the modern, rationalized, and scientific field of traditional Chinese medicine constructs its very real objects, bodies, symptoms, drugs, how experts think through and sort through pathology and health, and how contemporary doctors act responsibly and to seek out the root of bodily disorder. Okay, all right, but Chinese medicine is based on a lot more than that. It's not. I understand this author's very ecumenical view here, but Chinese medicine is fake, like all folk medicine is fake. It's not fake to the extent that it examines the world around it and seeks out root causes of problems. Yeah. If you've got some sort of health problem, probably a wise thing to do is to seek out the root cause of it. Obviously. But Chinese medicine is about a lot more than that. It's about balance in the universe, and the universe has no balance. It's about the flow of energy through your body from an ethereal plane. There are no ethereal planes. I haven't read it yet. This will probably be a very interesting attempt on the author's part to square Chinese medicine with rational science, to rectify it or reconcile it somehow. I'm hoping that the book starts with a fulsome admission that the main benefit of Chinese medicine for most of the people who practice it, especially in China, but also in America and anywhere around the world, is that it's less expensive than Western medicine. And in the countries where people have access, free, unfettered access to Western medicine, to accurate, science-based medicine, they don't bother with it anymore. They don't need to. You don't need to look for what spirit is causing you a toothache if you can have your toothache treated by a dentist under anesthesia. But I've seen other. I'm characterizing this book, and I shouldn't because I don't know exactly what it is. But I've seen other attempts to reconcile Chinese medicine. It's the same attempts that we've seen for European folk medicine, St. John's Wort and whatnot. There's always a rearguard action, a fairly desperate, almost touching attempt not to jettison all of these folklore traditions that people say got humanity this far, but they didn't. They didn't. It's 2020 now. A doctor in AD 20 and a doctor in AD 820 or AD 1820 none of those three doctors would have been able to do anything for you, medically speaking. Nothing at all. Some of them got very wealthy by making claims, but they couldn't do anything. They didn't have any arsenal, and the arsenal they had is the arsenal of folk medicine. Anyway, we shall see. Let's see what we have next here. Okay, all right. I don't know what this is. Oh, I kind of like the feel of it. The publisher is And Other Stories, ampersand, And Other Stories. And the book is Endland by Tim Eckels. Endland. A very nice squat paperback that I'd be willing to bet is yet another paperback original. We've seen a lot of those this year. That's been very encouraging. Hope she doesn't tell me anything useful. Yeah, this is going to be an $18 paperback. Okay, great. All right, so let's see here. Our world today seems to many like a place of political and social confusion, of fog and menace, of silences and clogged, jumbled data feeds. Okay. Our world today didn't seem like that when we had a rational person as President of the United States. No one in the world thought that way. No one felt like they were wandering around in a fog of misinformation and lies and jumbled data. Only 5 years ago. And now everyone in the world does because of one person. Because of one person saying the things that you see and the things that you hear are not real. Oh, I hear sirens. You get to be my age. The first thing you check is to see if the sirens are coming from you. You check to see if something's fallen off. Let's see here. A near universal experience can often be best expressed in fiction through the particular. In this case, a setting which draws heavily on Tim Echtel's life in South Yorkshire, where he has lived from the 1980s. Okay, since the 1980s. As you may know, it was a difficult time of massive unemployment and social deprivation in the region after Margaret Thatcher closed the mining industry down, while the local steel industry also shrank massively. South Yorkshire was in a kind of civil war with the central government, and it didn't go well. This novel is 1980s Sheffield, but it's also today's England, and also the wider world of international conflict zones and violent neighbors. It's a reality with a little slippage between real and virtual experience, and you'll find there are gods there too. Apollo 12, Porridge, Spatula, Pac-Man, Thumper, Goldilocks, and Halliburton among them. That is just the start. The author is perhaps more alive to the insane, wonderful, and terrible things people twist English to say than almost any other writer. Okay, all right, this sounds like a strange book. I wonder if we can know anything about the author. We do, yeah. He's an author and writer based in Sheffield and in London. His work shifts between performance, visual art, and writing, and is presented in a wide variety of contexts, from museums and galleries to festivals and public sites. Any of you know this person? Any of you familiar? Any of you in the UK familiar with this person? Well, one way or another, he's getting his book is getting an American release. In May. Okay, this is a May book. Wow, that's a little disorienting right there. Sounds strange. Sounds like it might be very promising. Let's see what's next here. Oh, another one's this is a finished copy, whatever it is. Oh, very good. Oh, perfect timing. What perfect timing this is. Okay, a lot of you are going to know this author a lot better than I do, and that always bothers me because eyes on the prize. But nevertheless, I welcome it as well. This is a March book, and it is going to be part of my March Mystery Madness. A lot of these things probably will be. The March Mystery Madness is a old, venerable, a 5-year-old booktube event hosted by Elizabeth at Lizzie Fay Loves Books and a bunch of other great booktubers, celebrating murder mysteries all throughout the month of March. And by murder mysteries, we have a broad umbrella. We are including thrillers, crime fiction, romantic suspense, you name it. As long as there's an element of whodunit in there, then we're including that. And it's a terrific event. It's a time to dust off the mysteries. And remember that most of the readers that I know, love murder mysteries to one degree or another, whether they admit it or not. And I can't wait. I'm going to read a ton of murder mysteries in March. And we're going to start off, I'm going to do Mystery Mondays. I might do other days as well. But we're going to do Mystery Mondays, and we're going to start off like we did years ago by going over what we're actually talking about. We're going to have a fun time on Monday talking about mysteries, just in general, with lots of examples. But this, to get back to the book, this is a series a lot of you are going to know a lot better than I do. This is a lovely cover. Boy, oh boy, I love it. And this is a Temperance Brennan novel. A lot of you are going to know that character from a TV show, Bones. And this is Kathy Reich's Conspiracy of Bones. This is the new novel starring the character who is in the show, who is in the crisply well-written, if unrealistic show that a lot of you will remember. Let's see here. When a faceless corpse turns up on the banks of a North Carolina river, Forensic anthropologist Temperance Brennan must call on all of her expertise to unravel a mystery that leads her into a dark web of conspiracy theories and cold cases in this new novel, which comes out in the third week of March. Marking the long-awaited return to the series that inspired the hit TV show Bones, best-selling author Kathy Reich's riveting new novel delivers all the twists and turns we've come to expect from the master of suspense, alongside a ripped-from-the-headlines plot that will thrill readers from the very first page. Right, so nothing tremendously informative there. I, of course, am going to be curious. I have watched some episodes of Bones. I've watched some episodes of Bones sort of on my own, and I watched a few up in the old farmhouse in Vermont, and was struck again by the job that the cast does. The cast does a really good job. I have a complaint with the series. You could have seen that coming, I'm sure, which is that in order to make the Temperance Brennan omni-competent, she is omni-superior to everybody at everything, from physical combat to deductive reasoning to forensic science. In order to make her that, the writers of the show, one of whom is Kathy Reichs, at least at the beginning, make her a Vulcan. They make her an android. They make her Data from Star Trek The Next Generation, where she not only has no normal human emotions, but has never heard of any of them either, and has never had an upbringing, never had a childhood. Has to be constantly, in other words, she's a psychopath. In the show, the show never says that, but in the show, she's a psychopath. Just no connection to humans whatsoever, and needs people to explain to her, dictionary definition-wise, what empathy is, what projection is, what love is, what trust is. I don't recall if she's quite that bad in the books. Some of you will know better. You'll be able to tell me. Maybe Kathy Reichs was just taking that straight for her own fiction. But, of course, the natural question that's going to come up with this book is, has the experience of the hit show and the fact that now millions of people, I hate to break this to you, BookTube, you already know this, I'm sure. I will briefly give you PTSD by reminding you that 10, 20, 30, maybe even 80 times as many people watch TV as read books. Nobody reads books, it's just us. And now the author knows that those millions and millions and millions of people who never pick up a book know this character and her world. I wonder if that will affect this book. And I'm not sure that I remember. I think I read one other Temperance Brennan novel, and I'm not sure I remember it well enough to know. But one way or another, I will definitely add that to the pile for March Mystery Madness. Now, we do not have a box, but we are approaching cardboard here. There's a bunch of cardboard that we'll end with, totally randomly, of course. Let's see what this next one is. What have we got here? Oh, it's a big fat work of history. Okay, this comes out in mid-May. This is by Michael Hiltzik, who's the winner of the cover of the book says he's the winner of the Pulitzer Prize. We'll find out about that. And this is Iron Empires, Robber Barons, Railroads, and the Making of Modern America. How exciting. The most popular histories of the golden age of American railroads focus on the construction and completion of the Transcontinental Railroad. When the final spike was driven in 1869, few were prepared for its consequences and seismic aftershock. Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and author Michael Hiltzik explores the aftermath, how the country's new railroad network expanded and was consolidated over the next 4 decades, and the incredible impact this had on the nation. Okay, and who is he when he's at home? He is Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and author who has covered business, technology, and public policy for the Los Angeles Times for 3 decades. I love it. I love reading histories, fiction, memoirs by former journalists or present journalists anyway, because journalists learn some very sharp lessons about storytelling. They do. They learn to trim fat. They learn to hone in on the best parts of the story. They learn not to insult their readers. They learn it the hard way, or they get out. And this guy is not only that, but he's been a journalist at one venue for a long time, which I also love. He is currently the Los Angeles Times' business columnist and lives in Southern California with his wife and 2 children. Okay. All right. I'm thinking this is probably a peg. This is probably a history shelf book. Nice review, nice meaty review. But anyway, that is all of our manila envelopes. So now we'll move on to cardboard. And this next one, the first cardboard that we're doing is ominously slim. So it may be a slim volume of poetry. Be a little bit on the disturbing side, but oh man. This is yet more translated fiction. God help us. That's incredible. This is yet more translated fiction. Great. And is this also another paperback original? No, this is going to be well, I think, yeah, this is going to be a $25 hardcover. Okay, so this is Tokyo Uno Station by Yu Miri. Tokyo Uno Station. Requisite. Hideous American cover. What people are thinking. What they are thinking. I do not know. Imagine this author. Imagine her name down in the box here, just as normal. Now, instead of this nonsense, imagine the type font for the Tokyo mass transit system. And imagine that, or even just a picture of that, of the identifying station with a color photograph of the station. Maybe with slightly blurred so that you have a doorway in the distance through which sunlight is coming through. You know you're in a subway station, and you can see the name of the station. The name of the station is the name of the book. Now there, in 1 second, I have designed a much better cover than this. What is that? I don't even know what it is. Anyway, as you know already to expect. But the point I was trying to make is not that I'm never satisfied with hideous American covers. It's how easy it would be to do this. It doesn't even cost any money. The thing that I just described you could do with a high-definition camera on your own. If you're the publicist for this book or the design team for this book, you simply go to the station in question and take a photograph. And then crop it artistically to make the cover of this book. Anyway. This summer, the world's attention will turn to Tokyo as it plays host for the 2020 Summer Olympic Games. As Bones McCoy would say, in a pig's eye. The Summer Olympic Games have been canceled. Okay, or I'm not an oracle, of course. I can't faultlessly predict the future, but don't buy tickets because it's not going to happen. The city has long been a popular tourist destination, an international cultural, economic, and technological hub, yet little attention is paid to the unsettling socioeconomic injustices that helped build modern Tokyo and still exist today. There are long and detailed newspaper exposés of those injustices literally every day in both the Western press and the Eastern press. So, but you get the publicist who wrote this, you get their point. The devastating human toll of modernization is at the center of this book, a major new novel translated into English from one of Japan's most beloved literary figures, who has been called a creative genius by the New York Times. Yu has over 20 books to her name and has received the Akutagawa, Japan's most prestigious literary award. And this book was published with glowing praise last year in the UK. So, when was this written? When did this come out? Do we know? Are we going to be told? 2014. Deeply emotional and unflinchingly told, this book follows the spirit of a man haunting Tokyo's bustling Uno station. We learn that he left his young family and arrived as a laborer hired to prepare the city for the 1964 Olympic Games, and that he died traumatized by the 2011 tsunami and shattered by the announcement of the 2020 Olympics, living in a growing homeless encampment at the local park. His life story, what happened to him and why, will keep readers riveted until the last page. So this is translated from the Japanese by Morgan Giles, and it comes out in late June. Okay, well, when this pub sheet was written and put in the mail, no one could have known. But I don't believe that the Tokyo Olympics are going to be held. I have a feeling that by the time we're on the eve of the Tokyo Olympics, Tokyo will be posting 5-digit COVID-19 cases. So over 10,000 COVID-19 cases. That'd be my guess. This lunatic idea in some fringes of the commentariat, starting with the President of the United States, but also rational actors, that this thing is just going to magically disappear in the spring. I don't see it myself. I don't know that we have any way to know that. I think it looks like it's not going to. And I really can't, if that ends up being the case, I really can't imagine the Japanese authorities, considering their reaction to the coronavirus already, I really can't imagine that they would willingly invite tens of thousands of people from all over the world to come to Tokyo and press together and breathe on each other. I really don't. I don't see that happening. But we shall see. The book is free of that taint anyway. The book was written in 2014. So it gets a brisk read no matter what. And it's yet another, I swear, that is the biggest trend of 2020 so far, is works in translation. I don't know if there's been a massive uptick in them, or if it's just been a massive uptick in the ones I've received. Oh no! This one flew under false colors. This flew under false colors. This was it's the size of a normal book, but it is in fact a volume of poetry. I didn't see that coming. This is by Lawrence Joseph, and this is A Certain Clarity, Selected Poems, which comes out in March. Comes out in the third week in March. Let's see here. A selection of poems by the brilliant lawyer-poet spanning the 4 decades of his celebrated career. So this is a selected poems in the true traditional sense of covering his whole career. Beginning with his first book, Shouting at No One, from 1983, and continuing through to his most recent, So Where Are We, in 2017, A Certain Clarity provides a generous selection of Lawrence Joseph's poetry. Okay, all right. No other American poet covers the territory Joseph does. His ever-new interactions of thought, voice, and language impacted. It's not an infected tooth. It's not impacted. It's affected. The only reason you're using impacted is because off the top of your head you don't know whether to use an A or an E in infected. And rather than use a horrible, ungainly neologism, maybe you could learn whether or not to use an A or an E, and then remember it. If you can't remember it, put it on a Post-it note and stick it on your laptop instead of impacted. I don't remember where I was. Impacted by his Lebanese and Syrian Catholic heritage, his professional life as a lawyer and legal scholar, and the economies of the world working class labor from which he comes. Interesting. Okay, I don't think I know this author. I don't think I know this poet. That's not saying much. I'm much more open-minded to contemporary poetry than I've ever been, but I don't know it. I don't know it nearly as well as I know literally everything else. All right, so we have a volume of poetry. All right, and once again, this mail hall is just wandering all over creation. Now we have one last thing to do, and then we'll be done with the mail for today, because we did one before dawn, now we're doing one after sunset. I don't think, what are we going to do? The chimes at midnight? Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, my. Okay, we finish on a strong note, and we finish on history. We finish on a note of history. Do not need your talking points. Thank you very kindly. I know this subject better than the author does. I don't need talking points. Thanks very much. All right, we saw this already. We saw the advanced copy of this. This is the finished copy, due on the third week of March, of Peter Frisch's book, Hitler's First 100 Days, When Germans Embraced the Third Reich. Hoi. Let's see here. This has the pub sheet has the trifecta of industry journals, of industry review journals, the way that sort of take a first look at these things before they go out into the wild for commercial reviewers like yours truly. And that trio is the Library Journal, Kirkus, and Publishers Weekly. Your book gets to them, and it's by an unspoken sort of convention, they can run their review as soon as they get the book. So you will, as opposed to waiting for the third week in March. So, book section editors rely on those things. Librarians rely on those 3 journals, because that's how they get advanced warning about a book that's advanced enough for them to both contemplate acquiring the thing for their library and contemplate assigning a review to their reviewer. And this got a star review from Library Journal and positive reviews from Publishers Weekly and Kirkus. So that trifecta, it looks pro forma because it they review everything. Those 3 things try to review everything. But it's not a given. It's hard to do, to get 3 approvals from that trifecta. So that's great. Let's see here. With dizzying speed in the first 3 months of 1933, Hitler and his agents transformed the German Volk from a deeply fragmented society into an apparently unified front for Nazism and the Third Reich. In this book draws on contemporary diary entries, letters, and newspaper accounts to create a history of this transformation from the people's perspective. The book begins on the first floor of the Chancellery Building in Berlin, where Adolf Hitler, leader of the National Socialist Party, is arguing with press tycoon Alfred Hugenberg leader of the right-wing German Nationalist People's Party. Hitler's far more popular than Hugenberg, and neither has enough votes to form a government. Voters' loyalty is split among at least 4 parties, with such a sharp divide between nationalist burghers and socialist workers that many towns have black and red nature societies, soccer clubs, and choral societies, as well as political parties. At 11:15 on January 30th, 1933, Hugenberg's fateful decision to allow new elections is a tipping point. It will take 100 days to establish the 1,000-year Reich. But the real story doesn't take place in the halls or antechambers of power. The main characters aren't powerful men. Rather, this social history takes readers into the minds and hearts of the Germans who witnessed or were caught up in the remarkable transformation of their country. Oh boy. Okay. Well, obviously, very, very familiar territory, but we don't fault that, right? You don't fault that in history. There could be 10 books on this subject. I would read them all with interest because it's a question of what the historian does with their sources. It's a question of how eloquent they are, how far-seeing they are, whether or not they go out on a limb, and whether or not they can support it. So I'm all for it, and I'm ashamed to say, although this is right on my March shelf, I have not got to it. I am still desperately trying to account for February, with a few exceptions. I haven't been tempted to go forward, but I will. I will. So we had a couple of works of history here. So we have Hitler's First 100 Days. We have A Certain Clarity, Lawrence Joseph's selected poetry spanning 40 years. We have, let's see here, Iron Empires, that's more history. We have Kathy Reich's A Conspiracy of Bones, that will be for March Mystery Madness, a Temperance Brennan story. We have A Way of Life. An author contemplates Chinese medicine, hopefully looks at its social underpinnings rather than in any way trying to advocate it. If you have a tumor, Chinese medicine isn't going to do anything to help you, nor would a doctor in 1820, nor would a doctor in 820, nor would a doctor in 8020. There's only one science. There's not two sciences. There's no such thing as Eastern science. There's only one science. If you have a tumor, there's only one thing that will help you with that tumor in terms of curing you. In terms of palliating your care, if you've given up on your cure, fine, but we'll see. It sounds like I already have fights to pick with the author. Maybe I do. We'll see. Then Endland by Tim Echtels. Love to hear if any of you know this author. It sounds like there's a lot of a story there that I'm not getting. It sounds like this was just put on a truck straight from the UK without any vetting. That's fascinating. And finally, Tokyo Unio Station by Yu Miri. A slim translated book about a ghost who's been traumatized by Japanese history. Sounds fascinating. And the nice thing about most of this contemporary Japanese fiction is that I can read it in an hour. So I can ponder it for a long time. So there you go. That was your another day's mail for you. But I don't think there's going to be any more. What a weird day this was. Good Lord. Started off with the first thing. Now we're finishing up with mail. But I guess that's my life, isn't it? Book after book after book. So I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.